Hi, I'm Mackenzie.
Hey, I'm Denise, and welcome to the podcast from Rundown to Renewed.
We're continuing through the book, The 4-8 Principle, which is based off of Philippians 4:8. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things.
Mm.
So remember that with the end goal of your joy, it actually blesses others.
Yeah. So, when you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not necessarily due to the thing itself, but by how you're viewing it. And this, you have the power to remove at any moment, which is a quote by Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, it kind of shows that one of the most significant barriers to experiencing joy
Mm,
is not taking charge of your emotional life
yeah.
or having a victim mentality regarding emotions.
Yeah. And I think that's a very easy place to fall into,
For sure.
is that victim mentality. And so in this episode, we really want to encourage you guys to build up your emotional strength.
Mm.
And so, in the last episode, we went through 8 steps of ways to work on building your self concept, how you view yourself. And so, a huge part of that comes from your emotions
Yeah.
and how you deal with your emotions. And so, when we're talking about emotional strength, we're referring to 3 different things. So, your emotional resiliency, your emotional control, and your emotional toughness. And the thing that's important to note here is that emotional strength it's not really about denying your problems. We're not telling you to just pretend everything that's difficult in your life does not exist,
Right.
because that's not wise, or there's just no wisdom in that whatsoever. But it is about acknowledging a far greater power.
Mm.
It's about affirming God
Mhm.
and his power and his might over everything, rather than continuing to affirm all that's wrong in
Yeah,
your life.
for sure. Emotions are subjective indicators of objective experience.
Hmm.
And I had a experience today with my kids. They're 13 and 10. And like most siblings, they do argue. And my daughter had a piece of paper she wasn't supposed to have. My son decided to take control of the situation and get it back from her.
Hmm.
And in trying to get it back, touched her arm. And my daughter screamed bloody murder, said he hurt her. And um, it was delayed and overreacted, but in her head,
Right.
he hurt her.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in my son's head, she was doing something wrong. And what, you want me to just ignore when she does something wrong? So we actually have cameras in our house for safety reasons. And uh, I just looked on my cameras and I played it back and I was like, got both of their perspectives. Like, tell me what happened. And they told me their perspectives. And my son's was not accurate according to video, and my daughter's was not accurate according to video.
Mm.
So then we watched it together, and then they were both like, "Oh," ooh." And they could see, but they had to they had to get out of their emotions to be able to see this
Yeah.
and to be able to work through that.
Yeah. So when your interpretations change, your emotions can change.
Mm.
Right. So the reality is we aren't victims to our emotions. We are able to shape them by how we think. And so it's our task and our responsibility to start becoming proficient at interpreting events of our lives in such a way that we will remain empowered to improve them. instead of falling into a victim state
Mm.
and getting into those like, because when you do that, you're just going into like these lower emotions that just keep you stuck.
Right.
And so when you're able to elevate it and change your perceptions of things, you're able to move forward in healthier ways and to live with more joy because you're not being pulled down.
Yeah, I think that when you acknowledge that your emotions are not necessarily based on truth,
Hmm.
that recognition alone will downsize the damage that a negative emotion can trigger.
Yeah.
And going back to my kids, when their emotions were obviously not built on truth,
Right.
but their negative trigger, wasn't there anymore when we were able to watch that video together and we could talk through it all.
Yeah. So in the book, it asks, what are your emotional goals? And I don't think I have ever been asked that before, have you?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's not a common question. What
Yeah.
are your emotional goals? So we would love for you guys to do this as well. We're going to do it here. But, what emotions would you like to experience more often and more intensely? And then what emotions would you want to experience less frequently and with less intensity? And so in the book itself, there's a list. There's a list of negative emotions and a list of positive emotions. And so it says to write on a postcard, increase at the top, and you put the positive emotions. And he says, pick three to five emotions out of that list. And then on the back, it's decrease and it puts the negative emotions. And you have it somewhere where you can look at it and see it every day. So it's like that mental reminder of, oh, yeah, like I want more of this and less of this. So for me, we'll start with the negative. So for me, the negative that I would love to feel less of would be fear, loneliness, and resentment.
Mm. And for me, it's fear overload and exhaustion.
Yes. So we would like to decrease these emotions. And then we would like to increase, for me, excitement, confidence, drive, and awe.
And mine's confidence, peace, and gratitude.
Love that.
And we can't just flip a switch and be 100% in these feelings, these good feelings all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what would it have to happen for you to get 30% better at managing your emotional life? How could that improvement influence the rest of your life? Because when you're starting to change something in yourself, it trickles down into every aspect of your life.
Yeah.
So if you want to improve your emotional life by 30%, that seems achievable, right?
Right.
What would that look like? And in order to do those, there's three laws of emotional strength that we're going to talk to you about to receive improvement with that.
Yeah. And something that Mackenzie said, just a side note here in the last episode, was she was talking about like climbing a mountain and just keeping, taking those steps. So I think that's a really good thing to refer back to when, we're talking about what would it take for you to be 30% better?
Yeah.
What's it going to take for you to just keep taking those next steps to amplify these positive emotions and, not pay so much attention to the negative. Don't fuel the negative emotions, right? And so the first law to help with this emotional strength is like that law of, it's called the law of attention, right? And so we will always feel what we dwell on. And again, what you focus on expands.
Right.
And that's true of your emotional life too. And so I think, again, just refusing to fuel negative emotions by constantly talking about what's wrong in your life. A lot of times we think, well, I just need to get this off my chest. And sure, but how do you feel after that? Like, do you still feel the weight? And then you're also like transferring some of that weight to whoever it is that you're talking to,
Right.
And so instead of refueling and constantly, reiterating what's wrong in your life, What if you talked about your blessings to anybody who would listen?
Hmm.
And, I think we live in such a society that just is so hyper focused on the negative that we almost feel arrogant when we talk about our blessings.
Yeah.
But I want to hear about your good things. I want to share my good things, right? Like that's where that positive emotion of excitement comes in.
Right.
I want to share in my excitement and I want to share it. I want to know what excites you. Why aren't we focusing more of that? How can you make that more a part of your regular conversation?
Yeah.
Even in your worst seasons, we've talked about being in the dark tunnels before. You
Hmm.
can't see any light, but like, where can you glean? Where can you pull from? What was one good thing that happened on a really dark day?
Hmm.
That's what's going to keep you going, right? And so, this, in doing that, that's going to amplify the good stuff and it's going to keep you focused on the light. And I think also just verbalizing like your vision for the future. What are you dreaming about? What are you working towards? Turn the spotlight of what you are focusing on, concentrating on, speaking about to your future hopes and dreams
Mm.
and to all of the beautiful things in the future that God has in store for you. Because the flip side of the law of attention is that, whatever you stop thinking about or turn your attention away from, like tends to drop out of your life. So when you're so hyper focused on all this good stuff, it's not, the negative isn't really.
Right.
And I actually kind of experienced that today. Actually, I had lunch with one of my really good friends, and she had a really traumatic situation around the same time I was going through all of my trauma. And we did not talk about any of that today.
Hmm.
We talked about different things we're working on. We talked about just different fun things, and it didn't even come up.
That's awesome.
And I remember walking away and being like, oh, we did not talk about our trauma. Oh my gosh, we did it. Like, it's true.
Yeah.
It's really true. Whenever you stop focusing on it and stop talking about it,
Hmm.
it
I
can
was even thinking like when you're doing small talk with people and you're like, how are you? And
Mm,
everyone tells you how busy they are, right? And then they tell you their schedule for the next week of how they're running from here to there to there to there to there.
yeah,
Like it's not filled with that joy or
it's filled with, it's
excitement
like
or
bread.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and we talked about that in the last episode where that was one of the questions. Like, where's their margin in your life?
Yeah.
And that
You're so busy, there is none.
there is none.
Right.
And then the joy has less space to live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the next one is the law of exchange. And you can do away with a negative thought only when you replace it with a positive thought.
Yep.
So there's a word of caution here that you cannot eliminate a thought by fighting it or trying to block it out. Resisting an unwanted thought only entangles you and drives that thought deeper into your mind. And it makes it more of a distraction than
Mm,
anything.
that's true.
You can exert far greater control over your thinking and your life by replacing negative, counterproductive thoughts with a positive, empowering thought. So, this is biblical because it tells us to control, take every thought captive,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So, each thought that comes into our mind, we need to challenge that with
Yeah.
God's word.
Yeah.
Is this true? Is this true? Um, there are a couple verses that I wanted to share. The first is Psalm 73:24. You guide me with your counsel, leading me to a glorious destiny.
Mm,
And I think that's so amazing to think about that as God is guiding us and counseling us, as we are spending time with Him, as we are taking those steps, one
mhm,
step in front of the other,
mhm.
God is leading us to a glorious destiny. And that's with Him eternally,
Love
right?
that. Mhm.
Proverbs 3:5-6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight. In John 10:10, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. Another example of God wanting us to live full lives. He doesn't want us suffering and being stuck in our thoughts.
Yeah.
So if you want to gain emotional control, you have to gain mental control.
Yeah. And then there is the law of reversibility. Okay, so you have a God installed capability to produce feelings as a result of deliberate behavior.
Mhm.
Okay, and so like if you just rule out the option of acting into your feelings, you will forever be doomed to enjoy only those positive emotions that arise spontaneously,
Mm.
right? So the positive emotions and actions will be spontaneous if you are just like, well, I'm only going to act out of how I feel in
Right?
this moment.
Yeah.
And so hmm, that, I mean, you're giving yourself less opportunity to
Absolutely.
feel joy because I think it is more natural for us to go to the negative. It's a little easier.
Mhm.
It's, and it's easier to, right? Like you're not fighting it.
Right.
Whereas sometimes you have to fight for your joy and you have to fight for your peace and you have to fight for, all of that. And so, think of it like, okay, think about exercising, right?
Great example.
Great example. Because, oh, I'll just do it tomorrow. Or, oh, I'll do it next month. Or, oh, whatever. Or, oh, I just didn't quite hit my goal with my exercise, right? You're not necessarily always excited to do it before you do it.
Right.
But put on your gym clothes, right? Just start climbing that mountain, right?
Mhm.
What are the action steps that you need to take to get yourself to exercise? And then by the time that you're halfway through your whatever it is that you're doing exercise wise, guess what? You're grateful you're working out.
Yep.
You're happy. And by the time it's done, it's like, why was this such a fight?
Right.
So it's just taking that control. You have to start taking control, taking those thoughts captive. You have the power to do such a thing, right? The fruit of the spirit, one of them is self-control.
That's right.
And when you believe in Jesus Christ, you have the Holy Spirit in you, which means you have self-control.
Yes.
100%. And when we're taking control of our emotions, think about the word emotion. 86% of that word is motion. You are capable. You are 100% capable, and think of like boiling water. Okay. And like that's all the negative. Okay. Think of the boiling water as all the negative thoughts, emotions, all that. Right. And so the water's boiling and you throw a bunch of ice in it. What happens? Well, it stops boiling for a little bit,
Mm.
but you didn't remove it from the source of the negativity. So you're not getting to that root of the negativity. You're just throwing stuff on it. So, and that could look like anything in our lives, right? Um, Numbing does not remove the negativity. Maybe you're numbing out by watching television or having maybe one or too many glasses of wine at the end of the night, or you're you're overeating, whatever. There's so many things that we do. Maybe you're
Right.
maybe you're way too busy.
Yeah.
That's it too. That's a part that's numbing.
Yeah.
You're overloading your calendar so you don't have margin. We seem to keep coming back to that. Somebody needs to hear
Yes.
that they need margin apparently because you don't.
Yeah.
And you are really decreasing your ability to take this control and have the joy that you are capable of having. And so think about, going back to this boiling water, kind of going a little over the place here, but that's okay. Going back to that boiling water, like what is the source? What is the source underneath the pot of boiling water? And we're going to talk a little bit about that in our next episode, but that's something to consider. What's driving that negativity?
Mm.
If you're allowing negativity to drive you, what's the source of it?
Yeah.
And how are you treating it?
And remember when we're doing these things, it's not to shame
No,
you
never.
at all.
Never.
It's to open our eyes to what we are doing,
Hmm.
to open up what we can fully do for God,
Right.
right? And sometimes, he says, I am the potter, you are the clay. Sometimes that clay falls down and he has to reform it,
Yep.
and it's painful sometimes.
Yeah.
That's just a truth of life. And just know that you will bear fruit from the
Mhm.
pruning
Yeah.
that is happening.
John 15, one of my favorites. Yeah.
So we have some discussion questions for you. The first is, what are your emotional goals and what must you do differently to experience these desired feelings more frequently?
Okay. So, as I shared, my emotional goals are excitement and confidence, drive, and awe.
Mhm.
And so, for me, I actually see those working their way in, which
Yeah.
is really exciting. Yeah.
Mhm.
Excitement. Uh, I think for me, the awe is one of the ones that stands out to
Yeah.
me. I think that one stands out to me the most in them because I can see the excitement and the confidence and the drive
Mhm.
are through a lot of the work that I've been doing on myself and just through opening up my business and all of that. Those things have really been built up a lot, especially in the last 6 months. But the awe, I think for me, it's just having this belief in myself and what I'm capable of through leaning on God and trusting in Him and trusting in His plan.
Yeah.
And I think too, something that's really important is when you pray, pray expectantly. Because when you are praying, I mean, we talked about this a little bit actually, just the two of us earlier today with something that I was praying over her and her family, and they experienced it firsthand this week. And I said,
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh, Mackenzie, look what God did!" Like, because
Yeah.
I just felt this drive to pray that over them. And I told her, I sent her a text, to let her know I was praying for her and some of the stuff that they were wrestling with this week. And I said that I'm throughout all of this, I'm praying that God also does this for you. And He really, really did. And so
Mhm.
when you pray, pray expectantly
Right.
because that will cause that awe.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And for me, I want to experience more confidence, peace, and gratitude. And for me, I think that's just trusting and like having that trust and having that appreciation towards God and what He's doing, even when I can't see it.
Hmm.
Because, we've been through a long 2.5 months as a family. And like Denise said, exciting things are happening.
Hmm.
And I'm just filled with gratitude. And, I couldn't see that a month ago, 2 months ago. I couldn't see past what we were going through. But, with that trust and appreciation towards God, I know what He's done, and I know that He can move mountains, and I
That's right.
believe that.
Yeah.
So just having that trust and appreciation when you can't see it, I
Yeah.
think is so important.
Yeah, for sure.
The second question is, in what ways have you recently highlighted the wrong things? And this is a really fun one to talk about. We
Just
should have done this one first
just
and
be
then the other one
mindful.
second.
Yeah, probably. That's okay. This is real.
Yep.
We don't shy away from it on the podcast. So my small group is starting back up this week, and one of the leaders sent us the link to the book that we're going to be studying. And Mackenzie has read this book, and a few of our other really good, strong Christian women friends have read this book, and I have not, but I have heard stories of reading this book and just challenges being because the book is about battle.
Hmm.
It's about spiritual warfare. And when I saw what we were reading, I text Mackenzie and I'm like, is it bad that I'm dreading this? And she goes, Godspeed. Because we joke and we love each other. And she goes, just you need to start claiming victory now because you know that God already has it over whatever it is that may come up in your life as a result of reading this book. And I said, yes, you're right, absolutely.
Mm.
And I will be stronger. The women in my group will be stronger. We will be
Absolutely.
closer to the Lord through it. So trying to look at it through, and I mean, this group, we just started this small group this year. We went through like a whole church-wide program that my church does. And so this is like our first time kind of meeting outside of what everyone else does. We're kind of, branching out, and the church encourages us to do that. So we're really excited about it. But this is our first book, just study that was chosen. And I think it will, but we'll get to do it together
Yeah.
too, which is also great. You have, again, you have to, it's that, what are you going to choose? You're going to choose those positive or those negative, what could be negative.
Right.
And the reality is I've also learned in different battles that I've faced that, and we just testified to this as well with Mackenzie, like God can also do so, like the battle isn't ours, first of all. And second of all, God can do, just go back to that Ephesians 3:20. Like he can do immeasurably more
Right.
than anything we think or ask when we are willing to do that work within ourselves and with him. So it's, if I allow myself to think of this study that way,
Mhm.
then whatever comes,
Right.
we'll get through it.
A verse that I've clung to is like, weapons can form against you,
Don't
but they
prosper.
will not prosper.
That's right. I claim that all the time. Yeah.
And I think that that is important to remember because, Satan, like we talked about, comes to kill, steal, and destroy.
Mhm.
And we have a God that's bigger than Satan.
Amen.
So,
And I'm trying to like not even give thought to, oh, well, shoot, I'm going to be facing all of this. It's like, I
right,
don't even want to give, so,
Mhm.
right? It says, like, don't give the devil a foothold.
right.
I'm trying to not even say those things now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sharing to answer the question here,
Yeah.
but in like the day to day thinking and working through it, it's like, I'm not even going to welcome
Right.
such a thing. I'm going to focus on the victory that's already
Yeah.
mine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, for me, talking about highlighting the wrong things,
Mm.
someone I love was being mistreated, and I went into defensive fixer mode. And, instead of focusing on what was in front of me, I allowed that to distract me.
Yeah.
And, I can say it's a righteous anger. and, but really it's just distracting me from what is in front of me and the blessings that are in front of me. And like we just talked about, like no weapon is going to prosper. So I really
That's right.
don't have to worry about anything, but I just get defensive over the people that I love,
Yeah.
and I don't want them mistreated, and I don't want to stand back when they are mistreated. So, but sometimes God calls us to sit our little butts down and let
Yeah.
him handle it.
Take the high road. I had a friend tell me that once when I was going through, just felt like all these people were coming against me or against my loved ones. And she said, you will never, ever regret taking the high road,
Mm,
ever.
yeah.
And it's like, but in the moment, you're just, oh my gosh, you just want to,
Right.
you want to retaliate.
Yep.
Yeah. So, as we have shared, we are both life coaches. And so if you are kind of at the bottom of the mountain looking up at it thinking, how am I going to get to the top?
Yeah.
A life coach would be so beneficial in just helping you figure out what those steps are, what your goals are,
Yeah.
and how you want to get there. And so we would absolutely love the opportunity to chat with you to see if life coaching would be a great fit for you. And yeah, we'd be honored to work with you.
Yeah. We will continue this conversation over in our Facebook page. If you're not a part of that, make sure you join it. And if you are feeling run down,
There is space for you at our table.